Hello, I'm Jerome Ford, Managing Director of Ford HR Solutions. This resource relates to the conduct of an organisational investigation. Our first question is, what prompts an investigation? Well, employee complaints, of course. Employees' issues and complaints must be fairly examined and processed. Allegations of misconduct and wrongdoing, etc. Safety issues, of course, will always give rise to investigations. More commonly now, whistleblowing complaints give rise to voice-type investigations in organisations. And of course, lawsuits or other claims prompt an investigation in organisations. An obligation to investigate may come from anywhere. Complaints, for example, need not come through formal channels. They need not be in writing. Mere knowledge of problematic facts or events may be sufficient to require you to inquire further. Just because someone is a chronic complainer, you may still be required to investigate. The criteria are if the information supports it or if the law requires it. Something may happen outside the workplace. You may be required to investigate it if it has implications for the organisation. And remember that the focus of a lawsuit against you may be your reactions to a complaint rather than the substance of the complaint. That is worth bearing in mind. You would conduct an investigation in response to a complaint. It gives you the opportunity to take corrective action. And like the last point on the previous slide, you should always take the opportunity to take corrective action. You would conduct an investigation to identify the extent of the conduct being complained of by the employee and to limit later expansion of the claim. You'd also manage risk by ensuring that no complaint of lack of action can be taken, or by identifying and preventing a problem before it becomes a liability. You can establish that you acted reasonably in particular circumstances. Conducting an investigation could be about identifying and preventing a problem before it becomes a bigger liability. Or it could be about a specific law which imposes a duty to investigate, a complaint of sexual harassment, or a robbery within the business. When thinking about complaints, we can sometimes separate them into two types, those that are easy to recognise. For example, an employee writes or speaks about an issue, dispute or challenge, something which has occurred in the workplace. The employee may be stating that he or she has been treated badly or unfairly. A supervisor may report that something untoward has occurred. Complaints that are harder to recognise, you could be talking about a statement of an employee while leaving that he or she is unhappy for some undescribed reason. Perhaps an offhand comment overheard about something which has occurred about an issue, but no specific complaint has been received. It could be around an employee mentioning to someone that maybe two staff members are having a go at each other lately. It could be an informal inquiry, a follow-up, seeking further information, or it could develop into something more serious which may require a formal investigation. When considering the elements of an appropriate investigation, a number of aspects come to mind. Firstly, it should be conducted by an internal or external investigator who is impartial. It should be designed in such a way to ensure that all the appropriate witnesses are interviewed and all relevant facts are uncovered and followed up. Any investigation should be prompt in terms of time and thorough in terms of depth. It should be well documented. Many investigations are subsequently the subject of legal proceedings, and the decisions which are taken arising from investigations must be based on information which is well documented. The investigation must enable the organisation to draw reasonable conclusions, and that goes to the preparation, it goes to the documentation, and it goes to the diligence of the uncovering and following up of the relevant facts. Confidentiality is something that cannot be promised to people participating in an investigation. But the investigator must explain to people how confidentiality will be managed through the investigation and the obligations which people have towards the investigation itself and towards each other. The results and conclusions must be communicated to the parties to the investigation. And, of course, effective action must be taken to end inappropriate conduct and to deter similar conduct. It's important that the investigation should also have a best practice element to it. In considering who should conduct the investigation, your decisions can depend on the positions of employees involved in the conduct or wrongdoing. Your decisions will be different if the chief executive is being investigated compared to a more junior member of staff. They'll be different depending on the type of conduct involved. Is it a routine matter dealing with attendance, or is it a more serious and systemic matter relating to embezzlement? Has somebody been assaulted, for example? You'll make your decision depending on the potential liability to the organisation, depending on whether there's a likelihood of litigation or enforcement actions. These things are very important in regulated environments. The person you're looking for will be well trained in the skills that are required for interviewing witnesses and assessing their credibility. In planning the investigation, you should identify and review applicable policies, rules, and documents. These are your guidance and governance in the conduct of the investigation. Of course, you must become familiar with the issue to be investigated, and you must determine which witnesses should be interviewed and in what order. The simple things to do are to make a list of the people to be interviewed, make a list of the items to be addressed with each person, and consider whether you should use a confidentiality document signed by the witnesses. In communicating to interviewees, tell them about the nature of the investigation. Tell them whether there are legal obligations or niceties to be observed or complied with. Summarise for them the investigation process so that they will know where they are at any particular point during the process. Emphasise, of course, any confidentiality requirements, and also emphasise the prohibitions on retaliation by the organisation or any staff members. Tell them about any obligations concerning cooperation with the investigation, and tell them about the requirement for the investigator to focus only on the facts and not subjective opinions. This frames your approach in their minds. Some things to think about when conducting an interview. Prepare an outline of questions you propose to ask. These will guide your approach, but of course you will also be guided in different directions by the answers people give to those questions. Always seek the facts. Ask open-ended questions. Try not to ask questions which suggest a particular answer. Maintain neutrality and a professional approach. Remain open-minded. It's probably the most important ongoing piece of advice any investigator can be given. Don't argue or express opinions or suggest a foregone conclusion. Keep following supporting evidence such as photos, emails, notes, calendar entries. Remember, your investigation must be well documented. Follow up on answers and inquire further where facts do not gel or are confusing. Ask whether there's anything else that people wish to say. In our next programme, we'll look at the basics of interviewing, the atmosphere of the interview, and a checklist of things to bear in mind when interviewing the complainant, alleged wrongdoer, and witnesses. Ford HR Solutions can assist you with your investigations. We're here with free advice. We can support your investigation. We can also conduct investigations on your behalf when you need an independent third party. We bring you experience and expertise and would be delighted to be of assistance to you.